One of the greatest days in the NFL offseason, the schedule release. So cool. They move it to 8 o'clock at night a few years ago, so we all sit around and wait. Leaks aside, pretty exciting. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to Buffalo End Zone Podcast. We're talking the Bills schedule.
And I'm Andy Young. Lot to like about this schedule. Some areas for concern as well. We're going to break it all down, look at some of the best road trips, all those sorts of things as we jump into the Bills' 2024 NFL schedule.
We'll get into it in just a second, Andy. I was thinking this today. As an NFL fan, schedule release day, I like better than the draft.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Controversial hot take right off the top. I'm more of an NFL fan than who's coming out of college. Let them develop, turn into what you want. I get all psyched up for the schedule because I'm one of those dorks that like to sit there and go through every little thing.
The funny thing about the schedule is we already know all the opponents.
Yeah.
It's just when, right? And how
Time
it fits
of day,
together.
Time of day is big and time of year.
How many beers can you get in? Do you need a Bloody Mary? How's this all going to work?
Do you need to drink through the 1 o'clock games, rest during the 4 o'clock, and get ready for an 8?
Right. Are you going to have time to mow your lawn in the fall before the games get going?
That
right.
too. We'll get into this with our thoughts right off the top, Andy. Initial thought when I looked at the schedule, I'm not breaking any ground here. The start of this season is looking pretty tough, but I do like opening with the Arizona Cardinals. Finally at home, the Bills have been on the road the last couple of years to start the season in primetime. Sweet little 1 o'clock in the afternoon game against an NFC team to start the season, and one with a little hype around it.
Dude, what is better than a Sunday afternoon, early September, Orchard Park, New York, Highmark Stadium, tailgating, all that great stuff? It's just a scene. It's awesome. Yeah, primetime games are cool, and going on the road for big matchups is cool. There's just something about Sunday, 1 o'clock in Orchard Park, New York, that really speaks to football, what I knew growing up and what I've known as a media member. You just love it. We went through all those years of just 1 o'clock Sunday games. People have been a little off-put by how many primetime games there are.
That tailgating smell at the stadium, you're still in shorts. That first week, you're probably still in a T-shirt or one of your game shirts or whatever you want. And you know the cold weather's around the corner, but you just soak it in that it's still in the 70s, maybe low 80s for a game. I wanted to call it the Ralph at Highmark.
You can call it Rich Stadium. You can call it the Ralph, whatever you want. You brought up the smell. There's sometimes some other smells that emanate from the post-game tailgating, too.
Yeah, especially these days as well, pregame and postgame, as you walk through that parking lot and, quite frankly, my neighborhood as well. So, yeah, start off with a nice home game against the Cardinals, Andy. Then it gets juicy. They have the Thursday nighter. Love getting that out of the way, even though it's on the road at the Dolphins. That's probably better that's at night because we all know what the Bills ran into a couple of years ago where people were gassed towards the end of that game.
It's funny, too, because I saw some Dolphins fans on X complaining that the NFL took their one home field advantage, which is the heat in September, away from the Dolphins and put that game at night against the poor Buffalo Bills who had to sweat it out. Marquee game, right?
Yeah.
Two division rivals. The rivalry's been back for the last couple of seasons. Miami retools. They upgrade their defense. They've made some changes offensively. They bring in OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. Just a big matchup, right? Right away. Right out the gates for the Bills, coming off what you would hope is a Week 1 win against what seems almost like a throwaway game from the Cardinals. And then you get to Miami that very next week on 4 days rest.
Yeah, and it's cool. It just as NFL fans alone. You have the Chiefs, Ravens Thursday night, and then the next Thursday night, Bills, Dolphins. It doesn't get much better than that, Andy. We look at this first chunk of the season, 4 primetime games over the first 6 weeks, and then the Bills have that bunch of road games in a row to start. But it's cool in primetime. Jaguars, that's going to be a fun matchup. Ravens, a fun matchup. The Jets, hopefully we see Aaron Rodgers. He's starting on Monday night again. That might be snake bit for him. But
and you skipped over Houston there.
I was getting to Houston, but I need a sip of water.
The Diggs game, right? How is that not a primetime game? That's 2 playoff teams from last season, and then you throw in the Diggs factor. Everybody kind of treats Houston as a darling right now because of what they have on both sides of the football. Everybody loves DeMeco Ryans. Everybody loves C.J.
They're
Stroud.
the flavor of this coming season.
They're what the Bills were a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So you have that, Andy. Then you get into the middle of the season, and I mean, a game in Seattle. We knew it was coming, but in October, I've never been out there. You have, right?
I was. That's one of the best road trips in the NFL, in my opinion. Seattle's cool. Depends on the time of year. Could rain at any point during the year, but to have that in, late October before it gets really cold out, Seattle is such a cool city. That's a fun road trip and one you don't have very often. I think I went in 2016. That was kind of a crazy game when Rex was the head coach.
Right.
But Seattle is just a really cool atmosphere. You go to the public market, you go see the mountains. It's a cool spot. So that's a fun trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Dolphins at home, Colts on the road, Andy. Then we hit the Chiefs. This game coming in November this year. Not a shocker where it is, because you're never going to see at this stage Bills-Chiefs. I don't think right off the bat. I think you're looking at both teams building up momentum towards the end of November. You have the reigning Super Bowl champs in Buffalo, and we'll get into it when we break down the schedule more. But regular season, Bills-Chiefs goes to the Bills.
Yeah, it has. The last few years, that matchup has belonged to the Bills in the regular season. Now everybody's going to laugh and joke, okay, you beat them in the regular season. What have you done in the playoffs? We know how that has gone for 3 of the last 4 years against the Chiefs. But, that's the perfect time for that matchup in that late October, early November area where both teams, hopefully we know what they are. Hopefully they're both what they've been and really good. Just such a fun matchup. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes always put on a show.
And the 4:25 slot seems to fit them well.
CBS loves that slot, right? They love the Bills. Nance and Romo, right? You bring them in, 4:25. That's your featured national game for CBS that week. It's a perfect spot for that.
Here's the best part of what's coming up next on multiple levels. The rest between playing conference champions come up, the bye week after the Chiefs game. But on top of all that, not only are the Bills not playing on Thanksgiving, they're not playing at all Thanksgiving week. First time, long time that I can remember that if you're someone who covers the Bills like you and I, or you want to just spend the holiday with family and stuff like that, you get to do that Thanksgiving this week because the Bills, their bye week is the week of Thanksgiving. Perfect timing on multiple levels.
This will be my first year traveling every week with the Bills. I've traveled throughout my 13, 14 years of covering the Bills sporadically, but didn't have to do it week to week. And so I never had to go on the road on Thanksgiving or on Christmas and be away from my family. And I wasn't necessarily looking forward to that. I understand that those are marquee matchups and the NFL likes to put the best teams in those spots. But for selfishly, like, I have a family. I want to eat turkey and watch football. Even if the Bills were playing, I wasn't on the road, so I would watch. I'd eat and eat some more.
Oh yeah,
you couldn't tell I ever did that, right? And then watch the Bills, right, and take notes and tweet and do all those things and have a beer while I'm doing it.
Yeah,
it'll be different this year to not have them playing Thanksgiving, which they've done quite a few times in the last few years, and to just be off completely, right?
Yeah. Able to get away if you need to, like I do with most of my family living in New Hampshire at this point. So I'm psyched for it. I think that's good. And then
they're not psyched to see you, but you'll be there.
I'll probably get locked out. They might let my wife in, but, you
got the doggy door?
The conversation around the dinner table could get out of hand with me there, so there used to be a children's table. Now it's just me sitting there by myself.
Big politics guy, right?
Yeah,
at
huge.
the Thanksgiving table.
Yep, huge. Big fight at the Thanksgiving Day table. Actually, my brother has a rule: if it's at his house, no politics the entire day, so we're safe.
Okay, but you're at the kids' table.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I'm fine with that. That's fine.
We're going off the rails already, and I love it.
Then they come back, and here you have the San Francisco 49ers looking forward to this one, and it's in Buffalo. Bills coming off the bye week, so they get that rest going up against the NFC champs.
Yeah, this is a stretch here that's interesting. So you get Kansas City, bye week, San Francisco, the Rams, Detroit, all playoff teams right in a row.
On the road, too.
Yeah, and so you get the bye week there, but there's two pockets of tough stretches. I think we'll get into that when we start doing our predictions, but this is one of those tough stretches. San Francisco, we know how good of a team they are, helps to get them at home. You hope that gives you a home field advantage, but that's a tough stretch there for the Bills.
Yeah, close the season then with 3 AFC East games, Patriots, Jets, end with the Patriots. When that part of the schedule, when I looked at that, I thought that was dumb. I think AFC East, the Bills should be playing each one of their rivals early in the season and then get them again later. But I guess it is what it is. Final game of the season, not going to be involving the Bills and Dolphins. It's going to be involving the Dolphins and the Jets. Might tell you what the schedule makers think of the AFC East right now, Andy.
It's interesting that you bring that up, that they're not closing it all with the Dolphins in that last month of the season. They're getting the Dolphins out of the way through the first half of the season, which is interesting because those have been the two teams for the last 2-3 years that have been fighting for those spots atop the AFC East and for playoff spots. I mean, look, we saw it came down to Week 18 last year.
Yeah.
But
some Bills fans think it didn't come down to Week 18, you need to jog their memory sometime.
Yeah, sure. It came down to Week 18.
Yeah, I know.
But you're right. I think Rodgers being back,
yeah,
that's a big deal to the NFL. It's New York City. It's the Jets. They've got a good team, good surrounding cast for Aaron Rodgers. They want to give somebody else a shot in that spot.
And it also, it is what it is. If the Bills need to make up ground, I'm not expecting much from the Patriots. You get those 2 Patriots games at the end of the season if you need to make up a little ground too.
Yeah, it could be that those games are not high-pressure games against a high-pressure opponent. Now, it might be high-pressure because of where you are in the standings.
Correct.
Because the Bills do have a very difficult schedule this season, leading into that final bit of stretch there with the Patriots 2 times in 3 weeks at the end there. But it is an opportunity, like you said, if you do need to make up some ground or put some space between you and the Jets or you and the Dolphins, that could be an opportunity to do it. We'll see what the Patriots are since they've jettisoned Bill Belichick and they've got Gerard Mayo as head coach now. They bring in Drake May as a quarterback, a couple of new pieces. I don't expect them to be great. I think they're still in the midst of a rebuild.
Yeah.
Patriots, I wouldn't expect them to be a great team this season.
Yeah, the mystique is gone. Let's give a shout-out to Derek Babcock, Andy, messaging or retweeting or tweeting back at us before we launch the podcast.
Yeah, Derek, loyal listener and viewer. Derek says definitely nobody is playing the Bills coming off a full bye, and the Bills' bye week is in a good spot. I saw something the other day that the last few Super Bowl champions had a late bye week, week 10, 11, or later. Bills fall into that position.
Sold.
Yes. They also, like Derek mentions very astutely, do not play anyone who's coming off a full bye week, so that team won't have the massive rest advantage against the Bills. There are a couple of games where the Bills are coming off Monday nights, that sort of thing, or playing a team coming off a Thursday night that will have a little bit of a rest advantage, that mini bye, but no one coming off a full week off going into their game to get healthy and to prepare for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in, and we'll go through. I meant to bring a piece of paper out here because I don't know if you know this. I'm horrible with math and spelling and history.
So you went into journalism. Perfect.
So I'll try and keep track of what I'm putting down for the record here, Andy, but we'll start on September 8th with the Arizona Cardinals. I think you look at a win there, home field, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Cardinals coming out from Arizona. A lot of questions around them and the future with the Cardinals, although they're one of the teams that could be on the way up. But I think that is a slam dunk win for the Bills to open the season.
Get to see Marvin Harrison Jr.'s debut.
Yes.
So that'll be cool, too. And we'll see what Kyler Murray, if he can build on what he did at the end of last season. Arizona is a weird team to me, and it's one of those teams that you don't see that often on the schedule. I think that's a W, though. Nice way to kick off the season, Sunday, 1 o'clock, Orchard Park, and you get a oddball game to go out and get a victory and get yourself started.
Yeah. But then, short week, Miami Dolphins on the road in prime time. Team you swept last year during the regular season, but a lot has changed. You have the Bills getting younger and questions around the wide receiver group and what's going to happen there. Doubt we're going to have our answers after week 1 against the Dolphins team that has improved and, one game away from winning the AFC East.
I think that the Bills still have the Dolphins' number. I wouldn't guarantee that they're going to sweep the Dolphins, but I'm going to say the Bills seem to have fared better in those big primetime spots. Granted, it's somewhat of a new cast of characters for the Bills, but you still have Josh Allen. He's owned the Dolphins in his NFL career. So I'm gonna chalk that one up to a W.
And that's fair to say, to sit there and be honest, that Josh Allen plays some of his best football. I mean, how many times was he AFC Offensive Player of the Week after a Dolphins game,
Right. Almost every time.
Yeah.
He's usually putting up 400 total yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yep. So now we go to week 3, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars game at home. Another primetime game there, Andy. A lot of me thinks that Josh Allen is still smarting over that game a few years ago where they just look like total trash down in Jacksonville. This is another primetime game. The team's going to be up. First primetime game at home of the season. I'm going to get the Bills off to a 3-0 start.
Kevin goes 3-0.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, for whatever reason, gives them trouble. You have the battle of the Josh Allens.
You had it in Jacksonville, and then you had it in London last year.
Right.
But now the Bills get home field in prime time.
I'm going to go 2-1. I'm going to say that they lose to Jacksonville.
All right. That's followed by another primetime game, Andy, at the Baltimore Ravens. And this is where I'm going to throw them their first loss of the year just because of where the Ravens are, where they have been with Lamar Jackson there. A lot to like about the Ravens when you watch them towards the end of the season last year, even though they lost to the Chiefs. They were the 1 seed. I'm giving that one to the Ravens in Baltimore.
I'm going to go the other way here. I'm going to say the Bills win at Baltimore. And I think we've seen over the years that Sean McDermott and his defense do a pretty darn good job, maybe the best of almost anybody in the NFL, of sort of corralling Lamar Jackson. Lamar's great. He's an amazing thrower. He's obviously probably the best running quarterback we've ever seen in the NFL. And his passing has gotten better and better. And for people who thought he wasn't a great passer coming out or through the last few years, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the best. They play a different style of game than other teams, and it suits them. But I still think, for whatever reason, Sean McDermott has a pretty good formula to locking him down a little bit.
That's fair. I like that.
Although Derrick Henry presents a little bit of a different matchup now that he's with the Ravens, so that'll be interesting too. But I'm going to get them to 3-1.
Okay.
We're both at 3-1 at this point.
We're both at 3-1, and now here comes the toss of the coin for me. Now you have the Diggs game on the road at the Houston Texans. 1 p.m. start, which Bills at the Texans, I would have.
It's noon out there.
Right. Thought have been later in the day, but I get it. It's the NFL. There are other, believe it or not, other big matchups going on around the NFL. Not just every Bills game is a big matchup, even if it does involve Stephon Diggs going against his former team and who he used to call his best friend, Josh Allen.
I am going to give this one to Houston. I think they're a team on the rise. I think early in the season that Diggs factor will matter. He'll get up for this game.
Yep.
Steph is a great player. His time had just wound down in Buffalo. He's still got plenty of juice left in the tank, despite tailing off at the ends of seasons the last couple of years. And you know he's going to be up for that game. I just have a feeling they go on the road. Houston's good. That's a loss for the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you 100% with everything you said on there.
It may not matter like later in the season, like if they were to meet in the playoffs, it could be different. I just see in the regular season Diggs really getting up for that game and that team getting up for that game. The Bills could too. We'll see. Allen gets up for big games too, so it'll be interesting to see if we haven't heard from Josh ever saying like, I don't like Steph, right? He's said nothing but good things about him, so that'll be interesting.
The other thing is that is coming off of 3 primetime games to a 1 o'clock in the afternoon game, mentally your time.
Right.
I just think there might just be a letdown as well there after those primetime games and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you've had a rough stretch there with Jacksonville, with Baltimore, Houston, Miami. And then you get ready for the next game, the Jets.
In prime time once again.
Again. Four out of the first 6 are prime time.
Yep. And in New York, this is now 3 road games. I'm going Jets in this one. And again, this all hinges on what's going on with how Aaron Rodgers actually looks.
Mm-hmm.
He is up there in age now. Jets have made improvements, but it's no guarantee that is all going to click together all at the same time. And again, we'd have to go back and just nitpick through everything, but I don't think Josh Allen plays well at the Meadowlands.
The Jets are just a tough matchup for the Bills. Kind of like we talk about Miami and the Bills just having their number. For whatever reason, the Jets and Robert Saleh is a good coach, and he's got a really good set of defensive players. They cause the Bills problems year after year. Even when the Bills are clearly better than the Jets, they give them trouble and often beat them. So I'm going to give this one to the Jets early in the season, and we're at 3-3.
Both of us, yep.
And does it feel like Bills fans are starting to panic at this point?
I think there will be some grumblings. 6 games into the season, Andy, at 3-3, some grumblings to maybe move on from Sean McDermott. This team has too much talent to be where it's at. But then you come home and you have the Tennessee Titans, new head coach with the Tennessee Titans there. It's back in Buffalo after being on the road for 3 games. That, I think, after a Jets loss, turns into a cakewalk for the Bills. And maybe the feeling of, okay, now we're back on track.
The Titans are interesting. They said goodbye to Derrick Henry. They bring in Calvin Ridley. They bring in Tyler Boyd. They've got a decent little core. They're older in terms of wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins still there too. That is an interesting little matchup, but I still would expect them to beat Tennessee at home to get to 4-3.
And then, boom, back on the road and out west right after that. Sitting at 4-3, now you're at the Seattle Seahawks for a 4 p.m. game. I think now's where maybe the Bills start to step it up a notch a little bit around this point. I don't see Seattle as a threat to the Bills if they're getting momentum going at this point in the season. It's not what the Seahawks were 10 years ago or whatever. And if this Bills team has the talent that we think they do, they should be able to go out there on the West Coast and win this one.
Yeah, this is a chance to see a new head coach in Seattle for the first time in a long time, right? Pete Carroll, no longer there.
Uncle Pete,
gone. Pete. But they still have a very good wide receiver core. But I think the Bills are the better team overall. I like them to go to Seattle and get a victory there to get to 5-3.
Yeah, I like that too. We're not picking the same games, but we're both at 5-3 right now. Back home, November 3rd, starting to get cold out. Dolphins traveling up to the Bills in a regular plain old 1 o'clock in the afternoon game in early November against the Dolphins. I see the Bills winning this one as well. The Dolphins fans can cry all they want about that game being at night early in the season. Sorry, this game's at 1 o'clock. It could be chilly out. It could be 55 degrees out.
Yeah, November 3rd, you're right. I mean, usually that time of year, it's like 50 and rainy in Buffalo. You haven't really hit the big snowfall yet. We're not dealing with blizzards at that point in the year, although occasionally we get some crazy surprise storms.
Ice storm.
That would be the next. We haven't had an ice storm in a while.
Right.
Knock on wood. So I'm going to give this one to the Bills. That means I have them sweeping the Dolphins.
Yep.
I wouldn't be shocked if they split this year. I would be shocked if the Bills lost both. But for this exercise, let's go Dolphins lose to the Bills. Buffalo now 6-3. For me.
Is it 6-3 or 5-3?
5-3? Could be. I don't know.
I told you I wasn't good at math, but I'm always assuming you're right and I'm wrong. Let's go to the.
It'd be 6-3 because that's week 9.
What game did I miss? Okay, we're both at 6-3 then.
Did you not put in Seattle?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Well,
it's
not like we're going to bring you back to. Hey, remember on.
We're not doing that?
May 16th, what you said about that game? That was wrong of you.
No.
Cold takes exposed.
Yep. November 10th, back on the road, Andy, inside at the Colts. I always hate watching games at the Colts. They're boring to me. Aesthetically, they don't look good. But I think the Bills should handle this one with ease and get past the Colts.
I've got them getting to 7-3, beating the Colts. So now you after you were ready to panic, we've got them both ripping off 4 straight wins here.
Yep.
And we've seen that the Bills in November and December and January seem to pick it up. So, this could be the case here. However, we've not gotten to another tough stretch, which is to come.
Yep, second tough stretch of the schedule coming up right now. At home against the Chiefs, November 17th. 4 in the afternoon, like we said, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo. I'm flipping the script on this one. I think it's still lingering in the Bills, the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs come to Buffalo. When they were at Buffalo during COVID, they beat the Bills. During the playoffs last year, they beat the Bills. They can come into Highmark Stadium and beat the Bills. And I think the Chiefs take care of business and the Bills fall to 7-4 right before the bye week.
We have agreed on everything but 2 games, right? I think
Yeah.
we flip-flopped a couple of losses there. I'm going to say the same thing. I think the Chiefs come into Buffalo for whatever reason and get the victory. 4 straight wins at that point we have for the Bills, so they're due for a loss. I don't expect them this season to go like 14-3. So you got to give them a loss somewhere, and you might as well give one to the defending 2-time Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, absolutely. Then they get the bye week. Time to refresh. Time for another primetime game, the final primetime game on the schedule. And it's the defending NFC champions, runner-up to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think it's funny that they're playing them in a row, even with the bye week in there. I mean, you look at that, you're like, that's tough. But I don't know, man. I still have questions. As good as the 49ers have looked the last few years, coming east, prime time, Josh Allen versus Brock Purdy, I just see the Bills way up for this game, coming back with their A game after being so frustrated falling to the Chiefs before the bye week. I just see this game easily going the Bills' way. Not easily. I'm sorry. But I don't doubt
they're going to blow out the Niners.
No. No, I said there. No. I'm not saying easy, but I'm pretty sure they're going to win it, and it won't be easy, but I'm positive they're going to win the game.
I'm going to counter that with the Bills at this point in the season are having a little rough patch.
Okay.
All right? They get the bye, and Sean McDermott's been very good coming off the bye, but I think Shanahan and that group of skill position players and McCaffrey and all they have on that defense, and they add Leonard Floyd, right, the old buddy. I think the Niners get the win in Buffalo, and then people are a little bit scared again.
Oh, panic mode setting back in.
And so I'm 7-5 now, right?
Oh yeah, I'm 8-4. You're
Okay.
7-5. We go back on the road 2 weeks in a row, and another trip out west, Andy. And look at you traveling with the Bills in December.
We're on the road.
Getting to go out to L.A., man, the Sunshine State.
I've never been to Los Angeles. I've never been to California, period.
Okay.
A lot of people I talk to say they don't love going to L.A. Other people rave about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to that. A trip out of here in December
Heck yeah.
to Los Angeles. I'll take it, right?
It's no San Diego.
No
but
San Diego. I am Ron Burgundy.
I see the Bills. I see the Bills winning this game on the road. Now, a lot is going to play out between now and then when we look at the entire season. But all things being equal, I just see Josh Allen we saw a couple of years ago. Looks like he has the Rams number, and the Rams aren't what they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams do present some tough wide receiver matchups in terms of Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, but there's not a lot of else there after that. You still have Stafford, who I think it's hard to say he's underrated, but I think he still is. He's easily like a top 8 quarterback for me still, and can really still light it up if he's not dealing with injuries. But I'm going to give this one to the Bills as well. I get them to 8-5.
I got them at 9-4. They go play back inside again in Detroit. I cannot get past Detroit being the Detroit Lions, even with what they did last year. You know, they're one of those flavors of the year, too, going into this because of where they got and what they did and Coach Campbell and all that fun stuff. But I think now the Bills are not in – yeah, I think they're in desperation mode and starting to do what they did last year with what do we need to do to just win this game? Let's win the game and get out of Detroit, and I think they do that.
I think that despite the Bills' track record of really being strong in December and January, going on the road at Detroit, a team that gave them a whole lot recently.
I get it.
And that's a team on the rise, too, that's feeling pretty good about themselves. Now, could they have a slump from what they were last year?
Some of these teams that are feeling good about themselves are going to run into a brick wall this year.
And when is it the time that the Bills fall off? We haven't gotten to that yet. But I'm going to give.
But they're not a team on the rise anymore.
No, they're just there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Detroit the win. So then the Bills are at 9-6.
Woo, Andy.
You're still probably leading the AFC East or close to it at that. Well, it'll be close. They may have to pull some heroics here at the end.
So now you got the Patriots at home coming up after that.
Win. Done.
I think there's a trip up against the Patriots in one of the two games. I think that's one of those games where you get annoyed that the Bills lost to such an inferior team. Not unlike they did in Foxborough last season. But this one's at the Bills. I think too much is on the line at the end of the season. But I think the Bills stumble a little bit and fall at home to the Patriots.
I don't see it. I'm going to give this one a win for the Bills. 10-6, so we're both sitting 10-6 now, right?
Man, I keep screwing up. I have me at 10-5, but
oh, that could be. Yep. Just keep moving along.
That makes Then host the Jets. I think that's a Bills win right there as we cruise towards the end. I think the Jets might be in the mix with the Bills and the Dolphins, but to me, I think the Jets
I screwed up my math there, by the way. For once, you were right. Kevin Carroll.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think the Jets are a legit contender, and I think we get to this time of year, and I have the Jets beating the Bills earlier in the season. I think the Bills get even with this one and get to 11-5.
I think the Bills get this one. They're clutch when it counts in December, for the most part. So I advance the Bills to win against the Jets at home.
Wrap up the season at the New England Patriots, and like I said, I'm having the Bills slip up against the Patriots, and then they're in position where they really need to win going to Foxborough to close out the season, and I think they take care of business pretty easily at Gillette Stadium to end it, and they finish the season with a 12-5 record.
I've got the Bills winning this one and finishing 11-6.
Okay.
Still, that's going to be tough to see whether that's good enough to win the AFC East when you have the Jets, who've got a chance to be good, and the Dolphins. There's some tough teams in this division. And isn't it funny that after all those years of the Patriots, for 20 years owning the division, they're now sitting at the bottom? It's crazy. It's how it goes, but you're just so used to the Patriots being good. Now you're like, oh, they're terrible.
I mean, what they did for 20 whole years, that's a little ludicrous, but like ebbs and flows.
It's also embarrassing for the other three teams.
Right.
That the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets were that bad in that stretch. I think only twice did anyone else win the division title during that time. One for the Dolphins and one for the Jets.
Yep.
That's it. It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. Says a lot on
That's
both
how
sides.
inept they were and how great the Patriots were.
Yep. So where do we see the Bills finishing then in the AFC standings? Do we see them? I mean,
if I have them at 11-6, I'm going to say probably the top wild card.
Last year was amazing, right? At the end of the season, it was the Bills could be the 2 seed or out of the playoffs altogether. I think that was going into the final week of the season. That
happened also because their AFC record was so bad.
Yeah.
So I've got them losing a couple more NFC games this year. So maybe in that regard, that helps them.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this exercise is completely futile.
Yep, but
we'll never go back to it again.
I'm saving this one. We're coming back to this one.
All right.
Come next fall.
Record this one, guys. Keep it.
I see them winning the AFC East.
Okay.
I do. I really do.
So would you think that, say, if my example is right and my prediction is right, who's more likely to then win the AFC East if the Bills don't? Is it
Dolphins.
Miami or the Jets?
Dolphins.
Why?
Because of what they've done during the offseason, where they were last season. Too many questions around the Jets. I mean, they have a great defense. Aaron Rodgers is back. They brought in some better weapons for Aaron Rodgers to use, but I've said that it's going to take time for them to gel, I think. I get training camp. Who knows how much Aaron Rodgers is going to do during off-season workouts. And I just see them getting to a point where, yeah, maybe they catch lightning in a bottle to start the season, but just can't finish. And the Dolphins are able to finish with what they have down there in Florida.
I think it might be the Jets.
Ugh.
And there's just something so dislikable about that team right now.
A lot.
All of Rodgers' stuff. The Jets, they're just that team that's just yuck, right? I sound like a 13-year-old girl.
Even
yuck.
they brought back the 80s uniforms, I still don't like it.
I have always just thought of the Jets as like this lower tier team.
Yeah.
Well, they've been horrible for most of their history. They've had a few runs. They won a Super Bowl with Joe Namath. We know that. But other than that, it's been pretty poor. They had a couple little go-arounds with Rex and with Parcells. But for the most part, they've not been good.
And I don't think when Brett Favre was there,
They were bad that year, I think, and he ended up going to Minnesota and lighting it up.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Jets lost to Matt Castle once with Brett Favre and then beat the Patriots in overtime that year. But I digress, Andy. Let's do a little 3 and out. Oh, before we get to the 3 and out.
You almost forgot.
No, I was just testing you.
Okay.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling, since our last podcast, newest wide receiver signed to the Buffalo Bills, and very polarizing once again. Another player coming in that's a wide receiver added to that room. It's one wide receiver shorter as we speak. Chuck Cecil.
Quintez Cephas.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
We barely knew you,
Yep,
Quintez.
we barely knew him, Chuck Cecil.
MVS, interesting signing. The Bills are obviously bargain hunting at this point. They still do not have that number one bona fide known receiver to eat up targets since Stephon Diggs moved on. I think they're changing their philosophy a little bit, both out of necessity and perhaps the way they want to do things, that they maybe don't want that huge target-eating guy. I would prefer the Bills still somehow land that guy. Does Keon Coleman develop into that? Does Shakir develop into that? I don't know that either can. Or are we talking about next year when they can go and try to grab somebody in free agency or draft somebody? But I think the one thing about MVS is he's something the Bills haven't had to a degree. He's 6'4". He's roughly the same size as Gabe Davis, but he's faster. He is a downfield threat. He's not a go up and get it contested catch guy. I think that's going to be more of Coleman.
Yeah.
MVS struggles with his catch rate. I think he only catches about 50% of the balls thrown his way throughout his entire career. However, he has stepped up in the postseason, caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl, had a big catch against the Bills to put that game away.
Yep.
Had a big catch against the Bengals last season, or the Ravens, rather.
Yep.
To put that game away. So you take a shot on a guy like that, and if you're not expecting him to be like your number two, it's fine. Why not have him in the role that Gabe Davis played his first couple years, where he's like your 4 or 5 guy, and you're not relying on him that much?
Yeah.
MVS, they still need that downfield burner, the Bills, and he represents that. Can Josh get it to him, right? I think Josh can.
Yeah, exactly.
Can he come down with the ball consistently? He has never put up huge numbers in his career. The most touchdowns he ever had, I think, was 6 in 2020 with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. He had more catches his first year with the Chiefs than he did the second year. But that's a guy who's now had a couple Super Bowl runs.
Super Bowl experience being brought in, Andy. It should be interesting. It's a conversation for another time, but they bring in some of these guys. Some of these guys aren't going to be on the roster when it comes to opening day, so it'll be interesting to see.
The wide receiver depth chart is wild to
Yeah.
me. Like, everybody's going to pencil in Shakir, Samuel, and Coleman. What is the depth chart, and what is the guys who stick on the roster beyond that? Right? Mac Hollins, what do you think of him? Is he going to be there because of special teams? You'd think probably MVS makes it.
Yeah.
So that's 5. Do they keep 6? And who is it? Then you're talking about Claypool. Took a flyer on him.
Yep.
You're talking about KJ Hamler. You're talking about Andy Isabella, Justin Shorter. There's a host of guys after that.
Yeah.
I would say that there's only 3, maybe 4 locks. I would think MVS is a lock.
Yeah.
So then you got 4. After that, it's interesting.
Special
but
teams
after that,
become
also,
key
how
after
much
that.
do those guys play?
Well, that's where special teams start to become key, I think.
And it'll be different, too, special teams-wise. How do the new kickoff rules affect
Oh, I keep forgetting about
return
the new kickoff
guys?
rules. Absolutely.
Do you need more blockers because of the way it's set up now as opposed to speed guys? It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out and how rosters are shaped at the back end because of special teams and some of the changes there.
I'm not one to wish time away because I love the summer too much, Andy, but I do love the NFL season.
It's golf season.
And the kickoff of it. It's time for golf. You and I got out and played maybe the worst round of golf I've ever seen 3 people play.
I still broke 100.
Andy broke 100. John and I looked like garbage at times. Very frustrating. But a year ago right now, I was at Oak Hill in Rochester, PGA Championship getting underway. It's now at Valhalla, Andy. I'm into it, even beyond the majors. Watched Rory win at Quail Hollow last week. Enjoyed that. Looking forward to another PGA Championship getting underway. And by the way, the PGA Championship people forgot to remove me from their list of video that they would email out. So I've been getting all the interviews. So I love that. Who's your favorite in this right now? We have Scotty Scheffler just had a kid. Rory McIlroy is getting a divorce. The 2 top guys you see in there have outside of golf things going on in their lives that could either A, be a distraction, or B, be something that, okay, I'm going to lock into golf right now for 4 days.
I still think you have to put Scheffler at the top just because what a run he's been on.
Right.
Just an incredible player. Being a father myself, I know that when you have a kid, it changes your life a lot. Have you been focusing? Have you been putting in the time? I would guess he probably has. I know people gave him some flack for saying, I want to get out of here and get to my wife. But Scotty Scheffler is just so good right now and so smooth. And I want to learn how to swing like him.
With bad footwork?
Yeah, because what I'm doing right now isn't working.
Yeah.
So I might as well just, pound the hell out of the ball, right? Swing out of my shoes, which I tend to do anyway. Lean into it.
I don't swing. The last couple of times we've been out, I don't swing out of anything, to be honest with you.
Except out of bounds.
Out of bounds. I swing out of bounds, out into the water, out into the road.
I saw you. We're going to go down this rabbit hole right now. I saw you hit a shot, a tee shot, where the ball went completely sideways and flat on the ground. I've never seen you do that.
No, it's incredible.
It was so bad. I almost couldn't tee off myself.
I couldn't explain. I can't explain it. It's like this. During COVID, when I would golf all the time, I was playing low 90 rounds. Of course, like we said, there were bumpers in the hole, and you'd count it if it hit the bumper. But
you were playing putt-putt.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta.
You call it a par 3 executive course.
Yeah.
Everybody else calls it miniature golf, but hey, whatever.
Hey, new person crapping all over me while we sit here.
Oh my God, I have to pick up the role.
Oh,
right?
I know. That's fine.
It's kind of the shtick of this program, isn't it?
I think so. Triple Crown, second leg, Andy. We'll talk horse racing. Do you care?
Not one bit.
Really?
I don't care about horse racing. I only ever really paid attention to it when there was somebody in contention for the Triple Crown, or I was the weekend sports anchor and had to run Derby, Preakness, Belmont highlights just because I thought that's what you had to do. I just don't – I'm not interested in it. I don't really gamble, so not my thing.
That's basically how I got into it, as fun. Back when, and my God, it's over 10 years ago, I think now. I'll have another upset in the Kentucky Derby, then won the Preakness. That was leading to a Triple Crown shot. So I've always just followed, I'm not a diehard. I mean, I'm looking at the odds right now. I knew Muth was a scratch. He was the favorite.
Who?
Muth. There's a horse named Agatu in this one, so you got that going. For Mystic Dan, the winner of the Kentucky Derby, now the favorite. And again, this one only 9-horse race, or now down to 8. So it's fun. You do it for fun, Andy. You look at the odds. You throw a little money down on a long shot. Maybe you win some cash.
I have really bad luck with gambling. And everybody says, you got to be in it to win it. And I don't bet that often on sports at all. So when I do and I take a loss, I'm like, I'm not doing this again.
Right.
Right? real quick, one of our YouTube viewers of the podcasts on Buffalo End Zone, JTL, comments, "Golf hurts my soul." It is a soul-crushing game, is it not?
I'm not saying I was throw my clubs in the water.
I've done that
frustrated. That I've never done. I'm too relaxed to allow myself to do that. But you talk about not having one good shot an entire round while you're doing your thing and John's doing, I'm just not. And I told you guys this. I was watching too many videos on how to grip the club differently and where it should sit in your hands and how you're back. So I think I overthought it. We'll go out again golfing, and I think I'll just go back to the way I used to go and then maybe like golf again, because right now, not a fan.
It's for the better.
Yeah. And finally, what you watching, Andy? I'll tell you what I watched over the weekend, and maybe it's old, but it's a documentary on Netflix, Lover, Stalker, Killer. I don't know if you've seen this one.
No.
It is one of the most – now, I like some of this true crime stuff. It is, again, and of course, if it's on Netflix and it's a documentary, it's just messed up from start to finish with surprises, twists and turns the whole entire way. If you haven't seen it yet, it's been out for a while, but that's a pretty good watch, and it's not that long.
Okay. Folks who know me know I'm a big pro wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Especially the old school stuff. And I have been binge watching the latest round of the Dark Side of the Ring series on Vice. Last night I watched the one on Harley Race, the 8-time NWA World's Heavyweight Champion.
I don't even know who that is.
You know who Harley Race is.
No, I honestly.
You grew up in the 70s.
I grew up in the 80s. Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant.
Anyways, you were in the
Von Erich.
See, he was in the Northeast. He was watching WWF at the time.
Dang right.
So, anyways, that's a great series if you're into pro wrestling. So I've been watching that, Dark Side of the Ring on Vice. Give it a big thumbs up.
All right. They have a couple of Dark Side things. I think they have Dark Side of football, too.
Not as good.
Not as good.
No.
Okay. Andy, what do we have next on the off-season schedule for the Bills? Rookie minicamp already in the books. Draft schedule release. Now we start to see some of the
boring stuff, the actual football.
Yeah.
OTAs, right? The next phase of OTAs where we actually see practices next week with the Bills' entire group. It's voluntary still at this point, but you see them on the field with the coaches. It's not just them working out or having meetings. We'll get to go out to practice. I believe it's next Tuesday, and we'll see Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and some of these new faces kind of start to put it together. So we'll have 3 weeks of that, and then it's mandatory minicamp, and then we're off for a few weeks.
Yep.
And then we're back for training camp at the end of July. So it goes fast. Once you hit the draft, it flies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is picking up. I look at my schedule right now between all the Bills stuff and needing to take vacation before the Bills report to camp.
I mean, you have
I have the 11-day power play that's coming up at the end of June.
Give that a plug, man.
For those
that's
who want to
awesome.
donate, of course, it's 11 straight days of nonstop hockey. It's a continuous game. The original guys broke the Guinness Book of World Records when they originally did it.
Shout out to
Buffalo.
Mike and Amy Lesikowski for getting that started.
Absolutely.
Just awesome event.
Mike and Amy Lesikowski, shout out to them. What they've done is nothing short of unbelievable with this charity.
And the millions of dollars they've raised.
For cancer charities across Western New York, including Make-A-Wish Foundation and Roswell Park Cancer Institute and more. So we do that. We're all on teams. There's shifts for the community. It's a community shift event. I play on 2 different teams. Raise money, play some hockey out there end of June when it's starting to get warm out, but you're in the ice rink. Something to look forward to. Always tell everybody, just stop by in downtown Buffalo and check it out and donate as well.
So I'm going to put this out there right now. I'm going to go to one of these games. I haven't been to one of your games in a couple years.
Yeah.
And anyone who comes up to me and says they heard this on the podcast and heckles Kevin, I'll donate $5 for everyone who does that.
Okay. I'm holding you to that.
I'm serious about it.
I love it. I love that idea. The media game against WGR Sports Radio is the good one to go to.
That's the marquee matchup.
Yeah, that's the marquee one. I mean, unless you want to watch Sabres alumni and Amerks alumni play each other.
Yeah.
If you want to see some out-of-shape
Boring.
media people,
No.
so do that. Andy and I will be back again next Wednesday after OTAs kick off. As always, everyone, thanks for joining us.